back to another podcast. It's been such a long time since I've done one of these, and I would like to first and foremost apologize. Life has been extremely busy within the past few months. I've been currently working on my commercial license to become commercially rated, so then I can fly and make some money. But training is going well. I'm just having a lot of homework and a lot of extra work on the side of that to complete as well. Because as a full-time student and as a working student, this can sometimes get pretty hard to balance. Anyways, so today something really occurred to me that I wanted to talk about. And I watched this specific video that really showcased the importance of this. So, I remember one of the podcast topics I was supposed to talk about a few weeks ago but never got to it was overcoming failure as a pilot. That is huge. As a pilot, you're going to fail. You are going to fail at something. Sometime it's just a matter of if not when. That is a fact, and it is tough. It's tough to get through. It's tough to become a pilot. We all just have to kind of accept that in a way. For me personally, it has been a few failures. I am a Part 141 student, very proud Part 141 student. And there's a few reasons why I chose 141 over 61. But that's for another podcast. So, as a 141 student, we do have stage checks, and I've had issues with one of those in particular, which definitely sucked, and I took it pretty hard. However, on top of that, I just recently passed my instrument check ride to get my instrument rating, and I actually failed the first time. So what I really want to talk about is it worth it to get an instrument rating? So a lot of people, if you ask pilots, there's kind of two sides to the story, and there's no such thing as what you would call in between. Some pilots will say that instrument is the hardest rating you can ever achieve. And some say that instrument is the easiest one to attain. It really all depends on personal experience, personal growth, a mindset, as well as dedication. So, with that being said, it is super important to remember why you're in it and why you're doing what you're doing. Because in order to succeed, you must be motivated and willing to stand up for what you're doing. So I specifically check rides, that is the hardest failure to probably overcome. But what's important to remember is that it's okay. There is not one pilot that hasn't failed something, whether it's a 141 stage check, whether it's a check ride, or whether it's just a test in general. Maybe it's a written test. And so it's really, we don't know circumstances. So it's really mind over matter at that point. And to be honest, it really does affect your performance and your faith and your belief in yourself. And so that's kind of like what makes it suck, if you know what I mean. Because you put in all this hard work, you believed you could do it, and you tried. But you ultimately failed. And to be honest, it really just depends. Like, mine was a complete fluke accident. You mess up on a hold. For private pilot, you mess up on a steep turn. For commercial pilot, you mess up on a chandelle. Honestly, it sometimes it just happens because nerves get in the way, and we we're not perfect. There's no way you can ever ask for a perfect pilot. What matters is what you learn from it. And a lot of people find that scary that, pilots aren't perfect. But the fact of the matter is we strive to be. We want to be perfect. We try our hardest to be perfect. But yet, sometimes it just falls apart. So, with that being said, is an instrument rating worth it? Absolutely. So if you haven't watched this video, and I remember sitting in private pilot ground class watching this and thinking, what am I getting myself into? Go on to YouTube and search, I think it's like 148 seconds left to live. And it's basically put out as a safety video showcasing a pilot who gets himself into inadvertent IMC conditions and loses control of the aircraft and gets spatially disoriented. He's not relying on his instruments like what they teach us. So first and foremost, instrument rating is necessary. If someone was to come up and tell me right now, yeah, I just want to fly for leisure, what do? I will tell them, go and get your private pilot certificate and go and get instrument rated. And they will soon find out that an instrument rating is not required for leisurely flight. And I'll tell them, yes, I know that. But why would I tell you something just for laughs and giggles? I tell people you need to have an instrument rating for a few reasons. And that primary reason is IMC conditions. So, I live in the state of Utah, born and raised. I know all of the weather and how the weather systems work in Utah. I'm very familiar with the area. I'm very familiar with the weather. And I can tell you this right now that things happen with weather that are unpredictable. I still remember the first time I went to Hawaii, and I was told by a bunch of friends, do not mess with the ocean because it is unforgivable and it's impossible to beat out. It's too strong and you'll die. I was like, okay, fine. And I actually had an experience with that where we did get caught up in some waves and it did turn a little bit scary. So my main point with that is weather is unforgivable. You don't know. I mean, you can look at a TAF, a terminal aerodrome forecast. You can look at convective sigmets. You can look at sigmets, airmets. You can do winds aloft. You can look at your prog charts. You can brief your weather through and through. You can get a standard abbreviated outlook briefing. You can do all those things and still end up in inadvertent IMC. Now, a lot of you are asking, well, what is IMC? So there's really technically four weather categorical outlooks. So number one is VFR, which is Visual Flight Rules, or VMC, Visual Meteorological Conditions. And so basically, that just means you can look outside and see. How convenient, how awesome. And then there's IFR. So those are the two main categorical outlooks. But IFR, Instrument Flight Rules, or IMC, Instrument Meteorological Conditions, that means, well, quite frankly, you can't see, and the pilot must rely on their instruments. So, and a lot of people ask, well, how do you get into inadvertent IMC? A lot of this happens at night. The FAA says that night hours count for night. However, I have had personal experiences where I've been on an IFR flight plan, thankfully, and experienced IFR at night because it is pitch black. You have no reference to the ground. Now, with that being said, it is very scary. And I tell these horror stories to people because of as a precautionary statement so then you guys don't fall into that situation. But luckily, I was fully instrument rated, fully instrument capable. I knew what to do and how to handle the situation. Plus, we were on an IFR flight plan and had guidance from air traffic control. So all was well. Also, the second reason why I tell all pilots you need to stick it through and get an instrument rating is because of something called spatial disorientation. So, spatial disorientation, for those who don't know, that's essentially where your brain and body are kind of conflicting each other. And you're lost in space. You don't know where you're at. You don't know what your senses are feeling. Which that also leads to other problems, such as your illusions. Like your elevator illusions. Your, the stomatographic issues. You also have your visual illusions. You have, kinetic, like more of a kinetic illusion. And so it's really like, it gets pretty scary when you're up there flying. And you have no reference to the ground, but the stars look like ground lights. And so I've had, situations where I've been flying at night with no reference to a horizon, and, well, it gets interesting, because the stars tend to get so bright to the point where you may mistake them for city lights. I've also had an incident where somebody up north of southern Utah, kind of right in the middle of the belly button of Utah, I had somebody shine a laser at my aircraft. And it hit my eyes, and I couldn't really, I had a hard time focusing. I kind of panicked a little bit. But I knew what to do. I couldn't look outside because of the laser, and I couldn't look outside because of illusions. And so I knew what to do because I've been trained to rely on my instruments. Another reason why you need to get instrument rated is because it offers a whole new realm of flight. You have a lot of ATC guidance. You're able to open up a instrument flight rules flight plan and get from point A to point B. You can also fly through low visibility, which is kind of crazy in my mind, but it really opens up a new realm, and you can fly up to 18,000 feet and up into alpha. But the main thing being the training. A lot of people ask, why did I get an instrument rating? And obviously because I want to go airlines, it's required. That's the only thing they operate off of. They're on IFR, no exceptions. But the main thing is for your safety. There's been lots of aircraft and pilots that have dove into the ground because of inadvertent IMC, or they think it's fun to fly through a cloud, but it's not. And they plummet into the ground. They don't count on their instruments, and they lose altitude, or they gain altitude and stall. The main point being, I'm big on safety, and with the recent plane issues that's happened in the news recently, I really wanted to address why you need to get an instrument rating. It's gonna cost you extra. It's gonna be extra time, extra hassle. It's hard. It's a hard one to get, but it is so worth it because you know what to do in those types of conditions. And the other thing is icing. As a private pilot, I didn't really know anything about icing besides increase your airspeed to avoid a stall. to avoid possible stall, like when you're landing. And I really enjoyed learning about these new things with instrument, because they unfortunately don't really crack down on it in private pilot. And so it's really important to get that training, to get that cross training, and understand what you're looking at and what each instrument is telling you. Honestly, I've used my instrument rating so many times, even while not on an instrument flight plan, and even while not in IMC conditions. I've used it. I've personally used my training for applying it to the traffic pattern. Like standard rate turn, half standard rate. You become a better pilot. You'll understand your aircraft more, and you'll understand your body more. And that's one of the things that I found super interesting about my instrument training, was the fact that I could actually, they'd put you in an unusual attitude. And they'd say, okay, what do you think you're doing? And I'd say, oh, we're turning right, and we're in an ascent. When no, we're turning left, and we're in a descent. And so it's pretty amazing how your body and brain are connected. And so if you ever feel sick, that's really just your body and brain sending conflicting signals, right? And there's just so many things that can go wrong while in flight. I've had a lot myself. And I've always remembered the phrase, remember your training, because that is the biggest thing you as a pilot can do. And I've had plenty of run-ins where I'm just like, oh, I don't know what to do, but then you step back and think through the process of, well, what would an instructor do? What would an airline pilot do? What would a 10,000 hour airline pilot do? What would some random bush pilot do? It's all about mindset. And you have a goal, you stick with it, but what happens if the goal goes wrong? You learn to adapt, and that's what instrument training is really about. ATC gives you this clearance and says, clear direct to Salt Lake International via Victor 21. You get that clearance, but then maybe as soon as you come across Fairfield Vortac, they say, okay, hold on the 360 radial right turns, maintain 1,000 feet. It's all about precision. And that's a very, very good word that you will get acclimated to when you begin instrument training, is precision. It's all about precision, the thought process, and decisions. Because what you decide now could impact the future of a whole bunch of people. So, should you get an instrument rating? Absolutely. Anybody that tells me that they want to be a private, that they just want to fly leisure, they just want to fly for fun, I go, nope. No exceptions. You need an instrument rating. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I kind of am. And I know that sounds awful and rude, but I am offering these tips because the countless times that I've had to use my IFR rating has been insane. And I also wanted to share how amazing it's been to notice the improvement with air traffic control. So, back as a private pilot, I remember the only experience I had was flying through the Vegas Bravo, which was extremely intimidating and I didn't like it, and talking to Henderson Tower over at the parallel runway Henderson Airport. And I did my 3 takeoffs and 3 landings and then left. So I really wanted to explain how IFR training, it really acclimates you to ATC vocabulary. Like, you'll get your craft clearance, right? You'll get your, you'll get clearances as you go through the flight if you're not cleared direct. Or you'll get approaches. You'll get maybe arrivals if your plane can fly that high or is compatible with the arrival. You'll get ODPs, obstacle departure procedures. You might even get a SID or STAR, depending upon what ATC is doing and your aircraft and you as a pilot is compatible with. So it's really teaching you adaptation with air traffic control procedures. And one thing that I did notice as almost a commercial pilot is how much fun it is to fly through a Bravo and land at an international airport where the big jets land, because you feel like your dream is coming true and you finally realize that the reward is greater than the suffering that you have to go through. As a pilot, I really wanted to say that you'll get a better sense and a better appreciation for what you're doing. And the card that you hold in your wallet or logbook isn't just a card. It is hard work, hard effort, dedication, and love for something that not a lot of people will ever get to experience. Throughout my training, I've talked to so many people. I've met so many people, pilots, flight attendants, mechanics, DPEs, AMEs. I've met so many people from all over the world. The United States, so many different states like California, Utah, New Mexico, and it spans all throughout the nation. And then I've also met so many internationals like Koreans, Japanese, Italian. It's really amazing the reward. And I remember first starting flight training, and it was the hardest thing ever. I thought, what is this commitment that I've just made? I have this passion for airplanes and flying, and I want to know how it works. But what is going on? It's a whole new language. It's a whole new ball game. I had to give up a lot of things to come and learn how to fly. I had to give up some of my older passions. I had to leave behind my family. I do get to see them often, more often than not, actually, but I had to leave them and be away, which I didn't like, but I also had to leave pets and my dog, my chickens. I had to leave basically our little farm to come and learn how to do this. I had to leave behind a garden that I loved to tend to. I had to leave behind 50 houseplants because I couldn't take them with. I had to leave behind free time and freedom, really. But to be honest, the reward is greater than the sacrifice. And I get asked that a lot. How do you manage as a female in aviation? And to be honest, to that I say it doesn't matter. Because we're all airmen. And we all are going through the same thing. I am a female in aviation. And I love that. But I don't let that hold me back. I don't let that allow me to get behind classmates. I use it to push forward, and I'm just like them, I'm just like you, but I purely wanted to really say that the reward is greater than the failures. The reward is greater than the sacrifices. You're gonna cry. You're gonna have days when you just cry. You fail an assignment, you fail a test, you fail a check ride, and you just cry and you don't want to get back up again. But in the end, you look up at the sky and you see the clouds, and you remember when you see that airliner pass overhead at 34,000 feet and you think to yourself, that's going to be me in 10 years? That's going to be me in 3 years. Not only that, but right now where I stand, that's going to be me in a little less than 2. And it's really a matter of practice and process. You just have to trust the process and don't let it get behind you. One of the biggest tips I have for any pilot going through any trial or any challenge is the first thing you need to do is reconsider why. Why are you doing this? To have a good future, to make money, to get a good job. But not only that, you're doing it to support maybe your parents, your siblings, your pets. What do you want in life? A house? Do you want a farm? Do you want, do you even want to own real estate? Start your own company on the side. Maybe you want to have a family. That's not for everyone. And to be honest, I can vouch for that. That's not for everyone. But do you want to have good health? Do you want to make good money to afford nice cars? Do you want to pursue a passion? And it's not about money for me. It's about a passion, because if somebody told me you can't fly anymore and get paid, I would still fly because it's such a good passion. And I also wanted to share that it's what makes you happy. If it's what makes you happy, if it's something that you're so passionate about, that runs so deep, I can't even describe how much I just love flying, because it's where I find peace and comfort, happiness. It's where I find miracles and justice. It's where I find true freedom. And it's where you find perspective. And just recently I had a complete perspective change due to flying, because I used to I had a hard time overcoming failure. But perspective changed when I landed at Salt Lake International Airport, which is my home base. That's where I'm from. Perspective changed when I did my PDPIC flight and landed there 10 times. And I couldn't believe it. And then I realized, look at how far I've come. I'm flying airplanes. Not a lot of people can do that. And a lot of people have that dream, but sometimes don't get to even pursue it. And so we don't really realize how lucky we are with the time period that we live in. A lot of people say that I act like I was born 30 years ago. And I say, I know. I feel like it. Just mentally. But we need to... I feel like aviation has opened up a new perspective. It's a whole new world up there. You see the curvature of the earth from just 11,000 feet up. You see small little landmarks that you grew up around as a child. You see the biggest things. You see the Great Salt Lake and it looks like an ocean. You see the mountains and they look like ominous rocks in the night. And even just that, you see the runway and it guides you home. It guides you from your home back down to your home. And you see things that not a lot of people get to see. You see lights that guide you into the valley where you were raised, and you see just these endless amounts of natural beauty flying over. I still remember for the first time ever, I got to fly over the Cedar Mountains, over by the Cedar Mountains, and I could not believe how beautiful that was. The colors, the scenery. I have flown over so many beautiful, beautiful landscapes. The fall leaves, the summer heat, the spring flowers. You see so many colors, and it's unbelievable. But it is so worth being a pilot, no matter what adversity you have to face, because I can tell you, we all have struggled. We all have failed. There's no such thing as a perfect pilot. And if there was, that would be pretty epic, but I can tell you right now there's not. The end goal is one step closer every single day. And I just recently passed, yesterday in fact, the commercial airplane written test. One of the hardest written tests I have ever taken. But I passed. Got an 89. I'm pretty happy with it. I wish the score was higher, but that's okay. We passed. And that's another thing. You can't let test scores define you. Some of us, we have a hard time taking tests, and I've always been one of them. Some people are just naturally good at it, so they can skip out coursework and just take the test and be on their merry way. But some people like me, we do struggle to take tests just because of a little bit of upsets, and we just struggle over the idea of failure and everything. But to be honest, it's okay. Your test scores don't define you. Your class grades don't define you. It's the effort you put in and the way you react to when failure is thrown at you. I didn't really intend for this to be a real motivational, I didn't intend for this to be that motivational, but I've just been thinking a lot lately, and I miss doing these podcasts, but it's so rewarding. It's such a rewarding experience, and the reactions to people when you tell them that you're a pilot is just priceless. It's one of the greatest things out there. And you're talking to so many people, and you find out that you are, you went to the same school, or you're from the same area, and you're pilots. Like, it is the coolest thing. But I just really wanted to end this specific podcast with, please get an IFR rating if you are considering being a pilot. It is hard, it's challenging, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of time, lots of studying, but in the end, it could save a life. As an instrument-rated private pilot, I can say that as long as you put your mind to this, that you can do it. But that's all I really have for now. Keep looking up to the sky and keep flying, because it is the greatest thing ever. But I hope to see you guys next week, and thank you for listening.